Game on. Hey there, game gurus. Welcome back to the channel. You know, it is just too nice inside to be inside playing a video game. In fact, that's why they make portable game machines, so you can take them outside on a beautiful day and stare at a screen. And that's what I'm going to do here today. I got this PowKiddy little handheld that looks like a Nintendo SP. And this was sent to me, just so you know, for purpose of review. We're going to take a look at this here. Now, my understanding is this is not the newest and greatest. It's been on the market for about 2 years. And originally you can get it for around 35 to 40 bucks. What I'm seeing right now, it's about $50. So is this thing still a value? I mean, the market, chip shortages, things happen. But let's take a look at this PowKiddy 64-bit console. That's what they call it. There's no really name. It's just called 64-bit game. That's this right here. But it is the form factor of a small Nintendo SP Game Boy. And this is the black version. They have a couple different versions. So let's take a look and see what's in the box. We'll play some gameplay. Now I also understand that there is some aftermarket firmware, and I've actually seen a lot of videos on that as well. So this has a stock firmware in it right now. And that's what I'm going to review. That's what it was sent. That's what I'm going to try out. But I'll probably do a follow-up video, because my understanding is that there are some issues with this firmware, but it's very easy to upgrade it to the new firmware and make it even better. But still, how does this stand up today? It's been on the market for a couple of years. You used to be able to get it for 35 to 40 bucks. Now it's about 50 bucks. Maybe get on sale a little bit less. But let's just take a look, see what's in the box, and give it a fair shake. Let's get started. Okay, so this is what you get in the mail. It's just a very small box. This must be a midget or something holding this, but this obviously is not as big as he's showing it here. I mean, look at the size of his hands versus the console. So that's a little bit off, but you know, it's a little Chinese handheld, fairly inexpensive. So we can't go too much in that, but I guess it's just called 64-bit game because there's no other name on this. You see here on the side, here's some of the information that's on it. 64-bit OS, support arcade plus Game Boy Advance plus Famicom plus Super Famicom plus Sega Genesis game series. Supports multiple language, made in China, which we knew. You have the console, a USB cable, user's manual. This one is black. They also have yellow and red. I do prefer the black if that's what I got here. Nothing on this side at all. And here they're kind of showing you some of the controllers on here. There's a headphone jack, USB port that is USB Type-C, which is a nice touch. Arrow keys, left button, but I think there's left and right dual buttons on the back of this thing here. Menu button, R button, power button, and the SD card. Now I know a lot of times in 2018 or 2020, when this I think I first saw this, they were including 16 gigabit cards. This one I think has a 64 gigabyte card, so that's good. Well, let's open the box here. So here's a little note. I am not going to know what that says. I'm going to assume this is this. Little note: when shutting down, be sure to select the power option in the setting option to shut down, and then turn off the slide switch power button. Otherwise, it may cause the system card to lose its files and cause it to crash. So, you know, the operating system that is loading up on here, they don't have a safe shutdown button. You need to actually go into your settings and do power off and then hit the power switch. So that could be a problem for some kids, like little kids. They're just going to turn the power off, which may corrupt your card. So I would definitely recommend, before you use this, take out the SD card and make a backup image of it, just in case. So one of the things that I will say about this as well is this does include a bunch of games on it. So that's normally a no-no, but apparently I don't mind. So here's our console. We'll take a look at this in a second. And there's a little plastic shell here. What do we have underneath? Okay, we have a USB cable, and it's A to C, which is kind of nice. And here is a manual, and I'm not expecting to get too much information out of this manual here, but that does show the unit, USB cable, a regular battery in here, which I think these are Nokia batteries, which would be very easy to get extras if you wanted to. And I think this is just the owner's manual. Just the owner's manual there. And yeah, there's some information here. Real men don't read instructions, unless we have to. So I'm going to put this back in here. I'm not going to take out this cable, so I'm going to put this back, and I'll move this box off to the side for a moment. Let's get the stuff out of here. And here's our console wrapped in a nice plastic, which is very common when you get these machines. And let's just take a look at the unit itself. So here's the PowKiddy, and you can see it definitely has the look of a SP Game Boy. Before we open, let's take a look on the outside. So on the very front of the unit, I don't want this bag to disappear on me. Let's do that. There we go. So we have a USB Type-C, which is kind of nice for charging. This is only expected to get about 2 hours out of the battery pack in here, but you could probably get larger capacity batteries if you wanted to. But that's what this gives you, about 2 hours. There is a headphone jack, which is nice. On this side here, we have our TF card. And let's see what we have there. Yes, it is a 64-bit, but a nice little controller on it. Look how cute that is. So I'll definitely back this up. You don't know the quality of the card, and just save yourself a little headache. Always make a backup of these type of things. Put this back in here like so. There we go. Here's our on-off button right there. Again, on and off, you have to be careful when going to the off. You want to make sure you do a safe shutdown in this first. Now on the back, there is a lanyard spot here, but they don't include a lanyard, which is a shame. They should include a little lanyard here because it's kind of designed for it. Now if you look on here, there are 2 buttons, L1, L2 for left, and R2, R1 for right. And the buttons are clicky, but not in a bad way. They feel pretty good. And then on the last side, there was a volume slider, and I'm actually okay with the volume slider. Gets the job done. That's okay. Now underneath, we have the battery compartment here. And we can see here is the battery. So I think it's a Nokia battery. And see if I can get this thing out fairly easy. Sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't. There we go. So here's the battery here. And they're saying it's a 1020 milliamp hour battery. I know you can get ones bigger than that in the same form factor. That's what they include. And you know, it's a fairly light machine. I mean, it doesn't feel super cheap, but it feels light. I'll put the battery back in here real quick. Close the battery door, if I can. There we go. So, I mean, the plastic right now with it closed, the plastic feels decent. It doesn't feel spectacular, but it feels decent. I don't think it would take too many hard impacts. I don't know how easy it'll scratch, but I would definitely say this is something you probably don't want to, you know, like the Nintendo original, you can knock it around and it could take a punishment. This one I'm not so sure, but it feels decent enough, I'll say that. Let's open it up here. We have a satisfying click when it goes in that position right there. That's okay. Now you can see we have 2 speakers here, so it is stereo. The joystick feels okay. I mean, there's no clickies. It's definitely got the rubber type of membrane in here, like the carbon contacts, but that feels okay. And that's our menu button. That's definitely clicky. Then we have our select and start buttons. They feel okay. And the A, B, X, Y buttons also feel okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total buttons on the machine. Start, select, menu, on control pad. Now the screen itself is supposed to be an IPS screen at 3 inches. Now one thing I've seen in other reviews, and I'm seeing here as well, there is a screen protector on here. And I'm sure you can see this little bubble at the top right there. Right there. But it looks like they put it underneath the plastic here. So you can't easily remove it. Now that bubble is going to, being me, is going to drive me a little crazy. There's a nice crow attacking some poor bird. But if you need to get the screen protector off, there are screws under here to pop these little guys off here. Take out these screws, and that'll make it easier to get this off. Now you can take a needle and kind of work it and pull at it, but you also risk scratching your screen. So I'm not sure if they meant that to be a screen protector or not, but I would have rather had an easier way to get that off. So with that being said, that's the outside of the unit. Again, in my hands, like so, it feels okay. You know, it doesn't feel like a product that's going to break in 2 seconds, but it doesn't feel like a Nintendo product either. So you got to take that for what it is. So we're going to slide this to the on position and make sure the volume's up. Let's see what the volume is over here. Volume, I'm assuming this is going to be up. Right there. Let's turn it on. And it's got the NX Hope firmware. So this will accept other firmware. You can see it's like a little Linux computer. Boots up. So this is the original firmware. See, it's very basic icons on here. We have Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Famicom, Super Famicom. It looks like Game Gear and Master System, Mega Drive. It does have PlayStation on here, Neo Geo Pocket, WonderSwan, PC Engine, Final Burn Alpha. Is that all we have on there? Looks like that might be all with that. So with these buttons up here, this menu is a little clunky. So you can't go over this way to get the other options over here. So I have to hit this rope one too far. I hit the R1 button over here, and the L1 takes you back, you can see. So if I go here, we have some like PC ports that were done here. Cave Story, Doom is on here, Mr. Digger, Mr. Drill. Oh, sorry, Mr. Drill's over here. I'm not sure what that one is. So this Mr. Drill, it's a fun game. I enjoy Mr. Driller. They do have Quake on here. They have Rise of the Triad on here, Quake 2. Looks like King of Fighters on here, and I think I can go down a little bit. They have Streets of Rage on here, which I think was a remake for the PC, Wolfenstein 3D. So they do include quite a few games in here. Of course, you have settings. If I go press the A button here, here's some of the settings. You have your language. Get a little closer, you guys can see it. So we have language, date and time, the battery information, screen timeout, CPU settings, so you can try and overclock it if you wanted to. Although I'm not going to do that. But the screen, I will say, I'm outside. The screen is very easy to see. The screen is very good quality as far as that goes. It's bright enough outside. I'm sure you're getting some reflections on here, and I apologize about that, but it's just too nice to be inside today. I'm sorry. You can change your skin, and here's your power button. So this is how you would have to either reboot. You can see right here, you can reboot, cancel, or power off. Failure to do the power off this way, you do risk corrupting your card, which I do recommend making a backup. So I'm going to back out of this. And I'm going to go L1 here again. So under here, it looks like there's some other things. There's a software commander. This looks like a music player, a media player, a notepad. I'm not sure we really want to have that. And then File Explorer. So some things you can do. So let's take a look at some of the things this thing can do. Now I have taken this thing out and I put a couple of files on here myself. So under the music player, you can see right here, it boots right into the music player. And very basic, tells you how many kilobytes per second it is, the kilohertz it's running at, how long the song is. And I don't want to play some of these other songs here for a chance of a copyright strike, but a very basic MP3 player is in here, which is fine, no biggie. The question is, how do you exit it? That turns up your screen. Sometimes you hit both of these. There we do. There we go. Now there's also a media player. Now I put some files on here as well. Now these are 720p videos that I put on here. And from what I can see, it does not play this very well. Now again, this is a stock firmware. My understanding is that the newer firmware fixes some of this. But just to show you, this is just my, let's go with the, let's see, new best friend, which is blue in the Build-A-Cade commercial. You can hear the sound. Sound is choppy. You can see how choppy the video is. So it's really struggling here to run a 720p video. So with the stock firmware, I'm going to say the video MP3 player is really not good. Let's see if I can get out of this here. There we go. I backed out. So you're not really buying this necessarily for the music player or the video player. You're playing it to play games. So I'm going to go over here. Oops. So, again, there's so many different ways now to play these games. This might not be as great a value at $50 as it would have been at $35 and such. But it is what it is. And I'm going to go into the Game Boy right here. Now, I also loaded some of my games on here as well. But you can see they loaded a whole ton of different games on here as it is. Now, if you use the up and down arrow, you go one at a time. If you go left and right, you go a lot further through them. I'm not going to go through all of these games here. Let's suffice to say they include a lot of games on here. But from what I've been able to find so far, they're all the Japanese versions. So if you need something that's really English or more tailored to your region, you can put your own folder in here and load your own games if you wanted to. So you can see right here, you could go to all these different folders and pick what you want in here overall. So I press the start button, it takes us back out a little bit. We have Game Boy Advance. Now, one thing I did notice, I was loading, I think I was playing the Mega Drive right there. And, there's always a concern with the Mega Drive with audio quality and sound. But I've seen some substantial graphic glitches in both the Mega Drive and in the Super Famicom. So I'm not going to really show them right now per se because there's no point. I'm going to tell you right now, some games play, some games don't. But I'm hoping the other firmware will correct that. Like the PC Engine and the other, like the regular Nintendo and the Master System seem to do okay. So I'm going to take a look at PC Engine here real quick. And again, all these games are pretty much going to be their Japanese variants, which is nothing wrong with that. I'll just find a game in here that people would like to see. And we do have 6 buttons, so you could play like Street Fighter and things like that on here. Let's try to find a game, And they also number them, so you can't even go really alphabetical because they're kind of numbered. It takes them out of order. Now, Bomberman 94 is a game I love. I love this game. Let's take a look at that. Now, I will say that the sound quality here is decent. Not exceptionally loud at all. That's at full volume right now. Sound seems like there's a little clipping in there. And I don't know if you can see it right here. There's a little power light. So you see it's green. If you had this plugged in USB-C, it'd be red to let you know it's being charged. So I hit the start button. This is such a fun game. One of my favorites on the PC Engine. Oh, the triple graphics. So again, the controller, the D-pad feels fairly good. The buttons feel very good. No real complaints. It might be a little bit on the soft side, but that's not anything bad. It's just your preference. So if you're a Bomberman fan or a PC Engine fan, I found that the games here pretty much work okay. So if I hit this button here, pause, hit up here, and go down to exit the game, like so. So the PC Engine I have found works fairly well. Now if I want to go all the way back out, I think I have to go over here. There we go. Other ones, of course, the Game Boys themselves, they work really, really well. Of course, finding the game is the harder part because, again, they've done all these numbers here in front of them versus going alphabetical. So that's why it might be more prudent to load your own games on here. But here's Castlevania. Let's just go into there. Again, it's going to be black and white, just like the original Game Boy was. But, you know, if you're a huge Game Boy fan, this screen is going to look so much better at playing the Game Boy games than the original Game Boy. Of course, you can obviously pick up newer Game Boys or replace screens these days. But let's go into the game here. Now, again, all this is doing is running emulators. And the volume, again, is on full steam right now. There's my jump. The button feels good. And again, I am outside. So I'm in full daylight in New York, and I'm having no problem seeing the screen at all. There might be a smidgen screen tearing on it, nothing super bad. But if you're a big Game Boy fan, you can see these games work okay. Go up here. You could also do a save state if I wanted to, so you could save where you were. You can load that save state, return to the game, but I'm going to go down here to quit. And let's go back down and see what else we have here. There's so many games you can do. Now here's Tetris. Now I couldn't find here in this the original Tetris I had in my Game Boy. They have other versions of Tetris, like Tetris Enhanced. But again, with the movie Tetris just came out recently, how could you not play some Tetris? You have to wait till this goes by. There's no way to skip it. That's how the Game Boy was. I was having some good fun with this the other day. Press start. Again, the volume right now is out at the max. I'm going to do classic. And let's get the ball rolling. And again, the controllers, the buttons feel fine. This game was just as addictive when it first came out as it is today. It's still a very fun game. And if you haven't seen the Tetris movie on Apple TV, you gotta see that movie. I thought it was very enjoyable. There's some liberties taken in the story, obviously, but overall the story is pretty factual, and it's just a well done movie. So that's your Game Boy for you. So you can see how good the screen is going to look. And we all know how bad the original Game Boy screen was, but it served its purpose. So we'll go out here and I can quit. So another machine that was working fairly well for me was the Famicom, and I was actually playing. You can see I added my own. So it came with these classic games, feature games, fine by letter, but then I added my own. So it was very easy. Just drop a folder on the SD card, and you can add. So this was here, this was here, this was here. I added these. It takes a second when you hit the button, because I have obviously a lot of games in there, and there's plenty of room still on the 16-bit card. Sorry, the 64-bit card to add more games. You can see I got a whole bunch on here. So I was playing some Punch-Out, and I thought that'd be a good way to show how well the controls are on here. Gotta go all the way down to the B's. Punch-Out. So obviously these type of games, the controller has to be responsive, the buttons have to be responsive, or otherwise you're going to have a really bad day. But I found that this was actually pretty good overall. Again, this used to be cheaper, $35 to $40 versus about $50 now, but I'm sure you can find it on sale for a little bit less, this device. But again, there's so many new machines out that obviously do it better. So this one, if you definitely got on sale, I don't think it's too bad. But again, the games, it does come with a bunch of games, but they're going to be the Japanese variants, which will have issues with lettering and such. This is such a fun game. Now the good thing about this is you can pause the game, go to a load state, because I've already saved the game. Oop, I thought I did. Load state. See, oh, look at that. See, I had played this previously, and I made a save state for this, and it's not loading my save state. So that's a shame. I'm not sure why it's failing now. State 1 load error. Well, that is a bummer, because I had gotten all the way through almost to the end of the game. There were all these different save slots. It should have been this one. But it's not loading my save state, so that is a bummer. So I'm not sure if that has to do with this firmware. So I'll have to test it out on the new firmware when I do another video and test that out. So that's a little disappointing. We'll go down to exit a game. And we'll go back up as well. So, performance in some of these are kind of hit and miss. If we go to the Super Famicom over here, classic game, feature game. So I'm going to feature games and see if I can find anything that's decent. Here's Mario Kart, which is a game that I know a lot of people are going to want to try playing. The audio seems a smidgen off. It's a one-player game. Pick anyone here. Just want to get the game going. So you can see that already the video looks kind of choppy as it is. Okay, so it's running very choppy. So again, this is the stock firmware, but I would say that this I wouldn't want to play this game here. The Famicom, the Super Famicom and the Super NES, mode 7 was great, and this is just very choppy. So again, this is stock firmware. I'll have to try this on a different firmware, because I've heard there's been pretty good improvements with it, but I wouldn't want to play that game. So let's just try a different one here. See if we get a bit of experience with something else. Well, here's F-Zero. I love me some F-Zero. Let's see how that plays. So like anything, different games may get different results. Choppy. There's definitely some frame skipping going on. It seems to be controlling okay, but definitely you're not getting the right frame rates. So again, I'm not going to continue with it because the stock firmware with some of these other games. So if you want this for just playing Game Boy Advance, let me see if I get a Game Boy Advance game going right here. Let me in. Super Mario World, let's take a look here. Okay, we are on, again, full volume. So I will say the display, visually, the colors are very bright, very vibrant, and again, I'm outside, have no problem at all seeing the screen. Yes, 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 come on, I want to skip past all this. Audio does sound a smidgen off in my opinion. You see, on a game like this, everything seems to be smooth. Again, the buttons and the controller feel fine. Been a long time since I played this game. So again, depends on the game entirely. So these simpler games are going to work better than anything with Mode 7 for sure. You go out of here, exit. And let me take a look at the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. Classic games, feature games. Now the game I'm going to try and look for obviously is going to be Streets of Rage, because I love Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage, there we go. Let's see how the sound works. Volume is up at 100%. The good thing about this game is you go here under options and hear the different music soundtracks. Not too bad. Okay, so the sound doesn't sound too bad. Again, you're not getting the most volume out of here. You might want a headset. So, oh, I'm going to use my special already. I will say the sound sounds pretty good. Now I have my punching, but my jump doesn't work. See, with these games, there's always something not right. So I can punch, but I want to be able to jump, and I can't jump. I can move my character around. I'll try my other buttons. Nope. So this would have been a win for me, because I have my sound that sounds pretty good. The graphics look really good this from the screen, but no jump button. So much for that. So the last thing I want to take a look at with this, again, this is the original firmware. I'm assuming we'll have a much better overall experience with the new firmware. I'll make a video going more into these games on that one. Let's go back out of here. Go over here. Streets of Rage. There we go. Wait for this to load up. Freeware, not produced or under license from Sega Enterprises Limited. Bomber Games. Well, there's my jumping. I can jump here. Got my fighting. But the frame rate seems a little bit on the slow side, on the low side. And the audio sounds a little bit off as well. Frame rate is definitely down low. So again, you know, when you have something like these and you put the games on there, you probably want to make sure the games actually work properly. Now, how do I even escape out of the game is the next thing. I'm going to pause. I want to get out. So this is the next problem is you have these games, no way to exit. I can pause, which doesn't really do anything. I can unpause. So in this case, you have no choice. Okay, sure you want to? Yes, I don't know how I did it, but let me out. But I can't actually still exit the game. There we go. No idea how I did that, but I got out. Now, another game I loved and didn't get a very good experience was Rise of the Triad. I loved this game on the PC. So let's launch that. Boot up very quickly. Apogee software. New game. Sound doesn't sound very good. Sounds really bad, but it looks like the frame rate looks really good. So this would have been a really fun game. I love Rise of the Triad, but the sound is so bad I can't play it anymore. So I'm going to see if I get out of this game. There we go. So that would have been a really fun game, except the sound was really bad in there. So let me give you some final thoughts on this PowKiddy device here in 2023. Alright, so what do I think about this PowKiddy device in 2023? Like I said, this device was really out a couple of years now. I think initially around 2022 came with a smaller SD card, and the reviewers gave it a fairly positive review back then. But this is now 2023, and I do appreciate the opportunity to review this, so I want to thank them for sending this out for a review. But in all honesty, for $50 right now, I would say this is not worth it. Yes, you could play some Game Boy games, some Game Boy Advance games, some Nintendo NES games on there fairly okay, Mega Drive and things along those lines. But you also included a media player, which really doesn't play anything. The music player was okay. And the PC games on here, Rise of the Triad would have been a win for me. But that did not work on here at all. I mean, frame rate was okay, but the sound was horrible. I did play Wolfenstein 3D, and that worked fairly well, so I'll give them that. The buttons feel okay. The screen is pretty good quality, for sure. The screen quality really does look good. So it is a nice IPS screen. Again, the buttons feel okay. 2 hours battery life is not great. Again, you could buy a bunch of batteries after the fact, but you shouldn't really have to. You should get a little more battery power out of it. I do like the form factor. You know, it looks like a little Nintendo SP, so that's kind of nice. And the build quality feels okay. the big problem is, even though you put a bunch of games on here, and emulators on here, and media players on here, and PC games on here, they don't all run very well. Now, they actually put a thing in here saying, you know, if the emulators don't play the game well, don't blame them, blame the emulator. But that's still what they included on here to make you spend your hard-earned cash to buy. Now, there is still hope for this, because again, there is an aftermarket firmware, which I understand fixes a lot of the performance issues. I didn't even bother showing you the PlayStation 1 games, because when I was running on here, they were quite choppy. So my initial thoughts on this thing right now is, you know, if you get it as a gift, okay. If you find it under 30 bucks, okay. But in 2023, to pay $50 for this little guy, as it is, I would say I would pass on it. There's so many other devices out there that can do a much better job in 2023. They have more beefier processors in them, better emulators on them. But that's my initial thoughts. I will do another video with the upgraded firmware and come back and see if some of these games work better. I was also a little disappointed. On Punch-Out, I did a really good job getting all the way over to Mike, and I saved the state so I could do it in this review and show it to you guys, and the save state didn't work. So that's a bummer. Overall, for the build quality, and again, if you get it cheap enough, it's not a bad little device. But again, we're talking 2023. There's so many devices on the market that could do a better job than this little guy in this day and age. This one here is, unless you get out a good deal or someone gives it to you, okay. I'm not sure if necessarily I would buy it. I'm going to put a link down below, so of course you want to make your own decision on that, that's fine. And maybe the follow-up video with the better firmware will give a better, better representation of what it can actually do versus what I saw here today. So that's all I have to say in this video. I do appreciate your time spending with me, whether you're inside, but hopefully you're outside, enjoying the weather, and maybe just sitting around and watching a good Glens Retro Show video. I do appreciate it. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. The thumbs up really does help the channel be noticed, and I really do appreciate that. And if you do, please share it as well. With that being said, no matter what you do or how you play your games or what system you play it on, remember to tell your family and friends that you love them, because tomorrow is never promised. But regardless, no matter what you do, game on. Game on. Sit, Blue, sit. Good dog. What do you think, Blue? Blue, do you want to play this? Come on, Blue. It's got Kitty. It's a PowKiddy. It's almost like a cat.